Hi there. If you're in my GCSE 301A class, or perhaps you're participating in NaNoGenMo, you're trying to figure out how to write some code that will generate a novel of 50,000 words. One way to do that is to simply write some code that will print a word 50,000 times. And that does meet the requirements of my assignment and of the NaNoGenMo event. Maybe not the most interesting way to do it, but I think it really depends on what word you choose to print 50,000 times. Maybe. This is a video where I'm going to show you how to do that and a way to maybe make it a little bit more interesting if you're doing repetition. So this is a notebook I've got set up, and I'll share the link to this in the YouTube description and of course on Canvas or wherever else you're accessing this. And yeah, here we go. This is something where I kind of have an idea of what I'm doing, but I haven't totally figured it out. So this will be a video where I'm kind of figuring it out as I go. I do have a source of inspiration in this case. I've done a couple novels like this with rain dropping sounds, which I thought turned out pretty well actually, but the one I'm mainly inspired by here is a book called Cowstorm, which was published and submitted for the NaNoGenMo 2014 by someone named Morbid Flight. And what they did is generate a novel that looks like this. It is the word caw 50,000 or so times, and there's some punctuation sprinkled throughout to make it look a little bit plausible like language, but to the extent that it's plausible, it's the kind of novel that a crow would write, or maybe a group of crows would write. I don't know if you've ever been in a place where some crows were really worked up about something, but this is kind of what it sounds like. So I thought that was pretty funny as a way to do this. And so based on that inspiration, I thought I would make a work called Cowstorm, but using the word moo instead of caw. Let's get started. This is a notebook where I already set this up to be printable. My goal ultimately is to make this so that I can print this as a PDF. So some of this is related to that, and I'm not going to get to it just yet. This is going to be installing WheezyPrint and Markdown. I'll go ahead and run this cell to go ahead and do what it needs to. And now in here, the idea is that I'm going to generate a novel, and whatever my novel ends up being, it's going to be saved as this variable called novel as a string, and I'm going to print it right here to see what it looks like. I've just started it off with hashtag Cowstorm, and that hash there is from Markdown. So in Markdown, that's going to be an H1 tag, or it'll look like a good title of this. So let's just try it like this. So let's do for W in range, let's just do it like this, 50,000 print, or no, not print because we're printing down there. We're going to just concatenate the string variable novel with, there we go, the word moo, followed by a space to make them separate words. And let's see how that looks. It's a lot of mooing, right? Now it's not broken up at all. It's just way out of theirs, right? So it's not so much a paragraph, or it doesn't look like paragraphs, chapters, or anything else yet. It's just the word moo over and over again. Technically, this does satisfy the NaNoGenMo requirements, but we can do better. And I really want my students to try to push yourselves beyond this, because this is pretty, it's just a few lines, and you're welcome to copy my code. So if you copy this, it's not very interesting probably, unless you put some other word in here that will somehow blow me away. I don't know what that could be though. So let's think of some other things to make this look a little bit more like a typical book. So one of the things that books have, and that English language has, is a structure like sentences, like paragraphs. So we could do this a couple ways, and I'm thinking probably before I do that, I want to make some more variations on the word moo, because as it is, it's just M-O-O. And if you think about how cows sound when they moo, they sometimes sound like moo, sometimes they sound like rrr. They do different things like that, and those could be represented differently typographically. So one thing we could do is maybe change the number of O's that get printed on here. Let's do this. Let's try printing. We'll start with the M, but then let's decide how many O's to put, and then maybe make some of those O's capital. So we'll just do this way. So we'll say for O, and this is O as a variable in range, and I have random on here, so I'll say use the random range function, random range, and I'll say pick a number between 2 and 10, and that's however many O is going to be as it goes through this. And for each one of those, we're going to say take the novel and stick on it either, well, let's just do a single O first. Make sure, come on, as a string. There we go. And let's see what that looks like. Oh, you know what? I forgot spaces. So let me make sure I add spaces back. We want to do that at the end of this bit here. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, there we go. So now different lengths of moo. Mostly kind of middle-ish, longish moos, and still no punctuation or any other kind of structure, but that looks okay. I do want to make some of those O's capital though. So let's just do this using the random choice function. So it's random.choice, and then I'm creating a list here of options to choose from, and it's going to be a list of 2 with either a lowercase o or a capital O. Just for fun, I'll add a 0 in there too. Why not? And then close off my parentheses. So now, yeah, my random choice thing is valid. Let's run this 50,000 times and see what we end up with. Okay, so it looks a little bit more interesting, a little chaotic. I feel like I want it to choose lowercase o's more often than the uppercase O or the 0. In fact, I don't really like the 0 at all. So I'm going to take the 0 off, and I'm going to put in a few more O's just to increase the probability that when it chooses a letter here, it chooses a lowercase o. So it's going to be choosing a lowercase o 3 out of 4 times, and yeah, I like that better, I think. So I'm going to keep it like that. So this is what I need to generate different kinds of words. And you know, if I really was wanting to get fancy with this, I could probably nest this in such a way that it generates words and then sentences and then paragraphs as kind of a series, and then like chapters, and it kind of makes one out of the other. And that can work, but it also can get really you got to really watch your nesting. It can get really kind of messy. So let's think of a couple other ways we might be able to do this. So one way we could just do is at the end of a word, every now and then, instead of printing a space, we could print end punctuation and then a space. So we could do it like with our random choice thing. So we could say random.choice. This, by the way, isn't necessarily the best way to do it, but it's okay. So sometimes it's going. So this will be a list, and so let's say most of the time it's going to pick a space character. Oh, I wonder if we can nest a random choice selection. I don't think we can, but let's try it just in case. All right, so because I want to say maybe how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 5 out of 7 times I wanted to choose a space, and then one of those times I wanted to choose an end punctuation, and the other 7th of those times I wanted to choose something like M dash or a comma or semicolon. So let's just try it. I don't know, maybe we can. I've never done this before. So we're going to put a nested random choice selection in here where it's going to have end punctuation. This is going to get weird. even if this works, which is to say I don't know if it'll work. All right, so just checking my parentheses. That one goes there. That one goes back to there. I'm missing one. There we go. Okay, let's see what happens. And it worked. Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is great. So this is sometimes I think in Python sometimes you can, like when you start running out of room horizontally, it's okay to go into the next line. Let's just see if that's the case, because that would make this a lot easier to read if I could do that. Yeah. Okay. Good. So that way I can go, so one of those times now is going to be, it's end punctuation, but I think other times I want it to do like a middle punctuation. I'm almost building this like a twine, or not twine, like a tracery thing. So sometimes I want it to do an M dash, sometimes I want it to do a semicolon, sometimes it's a colon, and more often I want to have it do a comma. All right. Oh, did I mess something? I probably missed my parentheses here. Yeah, it gets hard to follow parentheses whenever you're, oh, yep. That one's unnecessary. Valid syntax. What am I missing? I was worried about this. Yeah, I need one here, I think. This is the thing with nesting. There we go. Okay, wow, it worked. it doesn't always make sense, as you can see here. So that's all right. Okay, we're gonna fix the capitalization too, because we want to have initial capitalization, but we can do that after it generates all these words. This is pretty good though. I'm feeling okay about this. So now what I want to do, you know what? No, I think we're just. I think we're almost done here actually. Well, we could add chapters too, but I think in terms of initial capitalization and also paragraph breaks, we can do those at the same time with a little bit of find replace. All right, so this is, like I said, I'm figuring this out as I go. This may not work. Let me just think of this through here. So I'm thinking if I do novel and then dot replace, I can replace things with other things and oh man, regular expressions. I'm gonna have to do a regular expression, aren't I? All right. So I'm gonna pause the recording here for a minute until I figure out this regular expression, because sometimes it takes a while and you don't need to see me mumbling to myself. So I'll be right back. I'm back. I figured out another way to do it without regular expressions. It's a lot easier than regular expressions. So check this out. So we know that every time we need, oops, I forgot part. So remember, we're going to be starting each word with M, right? So what I realized is that every time we use end punctuation, we're going to need capitals next. We're going to need initial caps next. So let's just go ahead and add that to the same set of choices. Whenever we choose end punctuation, just automatically go ahead with the M. Now this is going to cause a problem because we're going to get two M's. So watch what happens. So we get M, right? And then we get to, there's an end punctuation and there's the capital M, but then there's a lowercase m immediately after that. Maybe that's not too bad because the way that cows sound is a little weird sometimes. Maybe it does sound kind of like moo. But let's just show you how to, that may not be the case for your situation. So let's see if we can make it only include one initial M. What we can do is, if we think of how the string is being built as it goes, it's going to add this and then go on to the next loop, and then what we see here is always going to be the last bit of the string as it runs through this 50,000 loop. So that means that by the time we get here, whenever it's going to stick this lowercase m on there, we can test for whatever the last letter added was, and if it was a capital M, then we say don't add this lowercase m. So what we can do is say we can actually check for that, and then only add the m if it's necessary. So what we have is the novel, and because the novel is a string, we can actually reference parts of the string using index slices like -1, and that's always going to be the last thing added. So as long as index -1 is not a capital M, we want to go ahead and add an M. So I'm checking for the negative there because we want the default to be just keep going. So if it just gets this and it's like, oh, it is M, then it's going to skip this part and then keep adding O's and then proceed. So let's see if this looks like the way we expect it to. And it does. So here's an end punctuation, exclamation point, and then one capital M, and then lowercase for the rest. And now we have sentences. So this is pretty good. Now we need to figure out how to add. Paragraph breaks. Sorry, I'm pausing because I'm thinking as I speak. I think we could probably do something in here as well. So now we're saying as long as it's not M, add the M. But what if we did it the other way? What if we check for, if it is M, then sometimes we're going to add a paragraph break, otherwise we're going to go on and add this the M and then go from there. Now let's see. So what we want to do then is say a novel plus equals, and then let's say sometimes we want to add, most of the time we want to add nothing, but every now and then we're going to want to add a line break. So we could do this this is a little hacky, but let's do, say, most of the time we're going to choose nothing, but sometimes we're going to do, we'll do 2 line breaks. And maybe this will work. Let's find out. Wait, did it run? No. Hey, there we go. So not quite right, but pretty close. And you can see what's happening is that sometimes because of where I put that choice, it's going to be sticking that M there, and then it's going to go, it's going to go like the O's are going to continue on to the next into the next paragraph, basically. So that's not what we wanted exactly. Okay, I figured out a way to do it. This is a little tricky, but what I'm doing here is I'm reassigning the value of novel to be everything up until the last letter, and then adding the next bit, which could be a line break, and then adding a capital M either way. And then we end up with something that starts to look a little bit more paragraph-like. These are paragraphs that continue on to the way over to the right, so it's going to be formatted better once we print this as a book, but that's getting there. Okay. In fact, I think this is probably where I'm going to stop this example. I can probably figure out a way to do chapters as well, but I'm trying to keep this sort of simple, and it already took me a while to figure this out. So I want to move on to the next thing. So let's go ahead and run this one last time just to make sure we're still good. We are. And now we can actually work this into a novel. And I just noticed I have this incorrect here. So I need to pass the novel into Markdown to render it as HTML, and then pass the HTML into the HTML converter from WheezyPrint. So if this works, this should pop a file over here called Cowstorm. Let's find out. It's working. Okay, so you sometimes have to refresh that, and there is a file, so let's see what it looks like. I'm going to have to download it. And then go ahead and open it here. There we go. It's beautiful. Oh, I noticed my first letter isn't capitalized, but everything else is. Every other sentence starts with a capital M. That's pretty good. All right, well, we can fix that, right? So let's go ahead and do that, and then I'll wrap it up. So, you know what I can do? Can I just stick an M right here? Would that do it? Yeah, that did it. Okay, great. So we run that one last time. Don't need to see it. Run the generation one last time, and that should do it. Okay, so that's one way to make a novel. It's deceptively simple, I think, because it took me a lot longer than I thought it would to figure out how to do that and make it look decent. So maybe this is still an interesting challenge. Now, you're welcome to use my code and make your own novel with it. Just don't do mooing or cawing, I guess. But, think about, is that really interesting? Like, is that really the best thing you can do? And, maybe not. Well, I don't know how long this video ended up being. I'm going to have to do a lot of editing to splice out the parts where I was figuring things out, but hopefully I can make it short enough. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.